afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this press conference. The DG will say a few opening remarks, after which we'll be happy to take the questions. When you ask a question, please identify yourself.
Thank you very much, Frederick. It's good to see you. Some of you I saw yesterday, and it's good to see you again. As I said last night, we had a very constructive trip to Tehran, and there is an agreement that we have now on important matters relating to the equipment and the continuity of knowledge that we will be establishing through it. But I would love to tell more about it through the lens of your own questions. So without further ado, I'm at your disposal. Thank you very much.
Francois Murphy from Reuters. Oof.
Hello.
Hi, DG. Since we're lucky enough to have you 2 days in a row, I thought we'd try and pin you down on some things that were left a bit open yesterday.
Sure.
First of all, so it's clear that you're going to meet Mr. Islami on the sidelines of the General Conference, but then on the return leg on your trip to Tehran that you hope to have, I'm just wondering, do you have a clearer commitment than what was in your statement about when you're going to go to Tehran and who you will meet there? And also on the issue of the centrifuge workshop where your cameras were destroyed, damaged, etc. So there's missing footage from one of those cameras. Can you tell us how you're going to go about recovering that missing footage? Do you have any specific commitment from Iran on that?
Thank you very much. Regarding the first part and the upcoming, the next meetings with the Iranian government and officials, like as you say, is correct. The new head of the AOI, Mr. Islami, will be coming to Vienna next week, and we are going to meet on that occasion. And as agreed in Tehran, I'm going to be returning to Tehran very soon. The exact date must still be precised, but the idea is that it is quite soon. So naturally after Mr. Islami's visit here, but very soon, very soon. And as it was said, for politeness sake, I shouldn't be saying I will be seeing X, Y. It is clear that it's high-level talks with the government of Iran, so that does not leave much room for speculation. It's going to be a very high level, which is needed, not for the sake of being, seeing, the top of the government. It's because, in my assessment, precisely because it is I said it in Tehran, it's a new government. It's a government that has very firm ideas on these issues. So I think it's essential that we get to know each other and that we listen to each other. So I hope this to happen very soon. Regarding the second part, we had a first opportunity to look into the equipment in Karaj. As you know, this has been reflected in one of my reports. So we have a pretty good idea of what we have there. And we are satisfied that the Iranian side has indicated that at a technical level, they are going to be exchanging information with our teams so that we can perform all the activities that need to be performed. We still need to see the degree of gap that there may be, but as you know, there are redundancies and there are ways to reconstruct the information, of course.
Thanks, DG.
Hello?
Jonathan Tyrone with Bloomberg. One very brief question. Can you give us an update on the online enrichment monitoring mechanisms, the OLEM?
Yes.
Yeah. Are they still installed and not working, or have they been removed entirely?
No, they are there.
Okay. And then the second question is relative to the physical inventory verification. Paragraph 81 of the InfoCirc 531 states that depending on the chemical composition and whether uranium is enriched to high or low levels, that the frequency of PIVs can be increased. So you've reported now 2 consecutive reports that you're unable to verify the stockpile of fissile material. Why haven't you increased the number of PIVs? Because that clearly falls under the CSA.
Well, I must tell you that when it comes to the type and the intensity of the activities we carry out in a country, not only in Iran, in any country, I decide on the basis of the advice of the Deputy Director General and his technical team, how we, I would say, distribute our resources and our intensities. And of course, this is not a matter that we discuss in public. But I can tell you that we always go for the best point in the curve, the one that is going to give us the maximum return in terms of information. This is something that it is invariable. So if it's how many PIVs or how many types of, this is a matter of a technical judgment that the inspectors tell me about, and then we decide.
I'm sorry, but I mean, Iran is the only non-nuclear weapons state in the NPT that is enriching to 60% levels of purity.
Indeed, I've said it many times.
And I mean, the CSA clearly allows you to increase the number of physical inventory verification visits. And I'm just simply asking why you're still unable to verify the amount of fissile material if you have the capacity to do that.
We are exercising our capacities to the maximum. But as I say, our capacities are not concentrated on a single instrument for verification.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Raghida Bahnam from Al Arabiya.
Sorry. Hello.
Hi. When you were in Tehran, you said that you received new promises from Iran. When you were in Tehran yesterday,
yes.
You said you received new promises from Iran to cooperate when it comes to the particles the IAEA found in secret locations. You have been receiving those promises for nearly 2 years now. Has there been anything new to build on, or do you not feel that you now need maybe a tougher approach, push towards a Board of Governors resolution in order to get Iran to cooperate? Because these are the same promises you've been receiving with no results, no different results.
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. First of all, I did not receive any promise. What I said to them, and I think it was very clear, is that given the seriousness of the situation, and I think I have described it very clearly in my reports, what I think or what I assess about the situation and what has been happening for the past couple of years or even more in some cases, it's well described there. So I was not seeking in this trip promises. What I said there, and I said it to you, and I continue to say it, is that I need to have a clear conversation with the new government about this, precisely to a certain extent to what you are mentioning, the fact that we have been trying in different ways to have a more focalized effort, having a compartmentalized analysis of each one of the situations. And for the time being, we have not received the kind of feedback that we need. So at this point in time, with a new government, and as you know, with a government that has quite firm views on matters related to the nuclear program, the past, the present, and the future, I, as Director General, need to sit down with them, tell them how I see the whole picture, and tell also what I expect from them, and to hear from them as well. So I did not get any promises. One thing I got is the agreement that this is something that needs to be done, And this is why I hope to be very soon in Tehran to have this type of conversation, which is badly needed.
Necessity for a tougher approach. You don't see that it's necessary to take a tougher approach.
Well, tougher or less tough is in the eye of the beholder. What I can tell you is that from day one, I have had an approach with Iran which is firm and fair. So they have every opportunity to respond. They have every opportunity to collaborate with us, but we have been exposing and putting on the table every information that we have. We have sought clarification, and we have characterized the cooperation or lack thereof in terms that leave no room for speculation. So I believe that the record of what we have been doing speaks for itself in terms of the, I would say, seriousness of the approach. Tough, less tough, this is for analysts to evaluate, or for member states. We do our job.
Thank you.
Hello, DG.
Hello.
Justin Kara from Agence France Presse. Good to see you. Just two questions, if I may.
Yes.
If I may. You were referring just now to the new government and the talks that you hope to have. Yes. I think you were possibly alluding to the fact that, you know, the administration of Raisi is widely seen as being more hardline, more conservative than that of the outgoing President Rouhani. What would you say to those people who say there's not really much point in waiting for the new government to sort of find its feet, and, you know, you're not going to get a more positive and more helpful response on these issues given their standpoint? And secondly, regarding the equipment, I mean, am I right in thinking that for at least some of this, the IAEA normally has real-time access to the footage? So therefore, given the amount of time that's elapsed, how long is it going to take you? Do you have an estimate of how long it would take you to get back to speed, as it were, to go through all this footage and evaluate it? I mean, the longer it goes...
Yeah. I take it, but let me start with this part, which is more technical than the first part of the question, which was more political. In this regard, what I would say is that we have to remember that the system that we have in place for this monitoring activities is singular, I would say. And it was decided, and it was adopted, and it started as a result of one of my visits to Tehran back in February, when it was announced by the government that a number of accesses and verification activities would cease as a result of a law. So we came up with a proposal, and we set up this system, which is a system that has certain limitations as well. As I have explained in the past, it has certain limitations. It gives us I would say, the advantage of the continuity of the monitoring, registering, taping, having all these stats, images, and information. But we are not making the assessment now. This is very important. We are not evaluating now, as we speak, what's happening. This is like an IOU. It's a document, it's a bank document that we are going to be able to cash when there is an agreement on the JCPOA level, because this is a system that allows for things that would not normally be allowed beyond the CSA. So it's a very delicate line, but it's working. It's a practical thing that is working, and I was glad to see yesterday that the government and the new head of the EOI agreed that for it to be real, for it to be effective, well, we have to do all this technical servicing and so on. And this is why I spoke about a communication breakdown, because we were talking to them, telling them, well, every such time, every 3 months or we need to service it, we need to check the batteries, we need to change the memory, etc. So this was done. So once we are assured that the storage of information, the flow of information is continuing, then we can say, well, we will have the raw material for, at the right time, engage in that exercise that you were describing of making the assessment. So this is one thing. And for the first part, you were saying, what would you say to them? Well, what I said yesterday, of course, in more detail, but basically that we need to engage. These things are not going away. We cannot wish them away. They are there, they are well known, and we need to address them together, Iran and the agency. So the point of having this conversation is to get an understanding of how they intend to go about it. And we, of course, we are always, as it should be, because we are the technical organization, we are always going to be proposing technical ways to get there. And this is what we are going to be working on.
Sorry, just a very quick follow-up, if I may. So if I can just press you a little bit more on when you come to that point of
Yes.
cashing the IOU, as you put it,
Yeah.
how difficult will it be for you to catch up, to go through all
Well,
of that?
it is something that has, to a certain extent, never been done before, but it's not something that is beyond the capacity of my technical teams. It can be done. They have a unique expertise and knowledge about the program, about the machines, the way they operate under different kinds of circumstances. We have a mass of statistical information against which we can ascertain whether through a certain period of time it is normal to have such a volume or not. So the mass of information, analytical information we have is huge. So we can do it, no doubt about it.
Yeah, hello. It's Hanna Kaviani from Radio Farda. Nice to see you.
Hello, hello.
I have two questions.
Yes.
One is about what you said last night, about the servicing and the memory cards. You said it's happening in a few days, very soon. Iranians are reporting, Iranian media is reporting that is very much dependent on what's going to happen at the Board of Governors meeting, if that is going to be any relations, in your opinion, between the two, if there would be a resolution against Iran, if still your agreement stands. And the second question I have is about, you mentioned incident which happened in Karaj facility. I want to know if you know the nature of this incident, and this so-called incidents, how in general it impacts your work and the monitoring work of IAEA inspectors in Iran.
Yes. Well, on the first part, regarding what may or may not happen at the board, I think it is normal that there is this type of speculation, but as you saw, nowhere in the joint statement that I agreed to with Dr. Islami, it is said that all of this is valid unless there is a resolution at the Board of Governors, or only if there is no resolution. So the two things are not, one is not contingent to the other. So this is one point. Second, on the events that took place in Karaj, it is not for me to characterize them. It's for the authorities of Iran, and I understand there is there's an ongoing investigation about that. And I would say that in terms of how it affects, well, as you can see how it affects it. Our equipment was destroyed. So it's not good in that sense. And in general, any violent event is not good if there was violence there. So what we did is we do our technical work, we concentrate on our equipment, what was there, how is it, was it affected, is there anything missing? And this is, some of it I informed in the report, and some of it we are still assessing. and we will be doing the assessment, and at the same time, we will be replacing what has been damaged.
Hi, this is Jordi from EFE. Nice to see you today. My impression is that somehow you're like in a transition phase because the new government in Iran, there's new experts, new people negotiating with you. How long can this go on like this? I mean, is it a question of weeks or months until both sides have met each other several times and sufficiently so that you can work again together? Is it, what do you think? I mean, how many more
Well,
weeks
yes,
or
it's
months
a
can
very
you wait?
pertinent question, and this is why I was so intent on having a clear agreement on their part to have a high-level discussion, because we cannot continue to go on in this way. The issue is an issue of the highest importance for Iran and for the world. So it is obvious that as a Director General, I have to have this conversation. When you say what is the time, I hope it's a matter of days, not months, certainly. It's days. In 1 week, the head of the AOI will be here, and soon thereafter I will be traveling to Iran, and we will take it from there. We will be discussing after that happens, Jordi.
Hello, Mr.
Hello.
Grossi, Homolesky from Press TV.
Yes.
Concerning this agreement or arrangement that you had with Tehran, and you talked about it last night as well, can you tell us how long this arrangement has been extended for? First we had the 3 months, then an extra month. This time, is it just no specific time frame? And you did also mention that when the JCPOA is restored, of course, you'll have the assessment. But what happens if the JCPOA is not revived? Has there been a decision on that? Will Iran destroy the data? Have you talked about that, or is that something you want to discuss later? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You may have seen that this issue of the length has not been addressed. And the fact is that we, having discussed this, we agreed that it is better and more practical to go about it as developments evolve. You rightly mention that at the basis, the philosophy of this idea, this joint endeavor that we have with Iran, is that it is a stopgap, as I said last night. It is a breach to give us some monitoring and verification capacity until there is something hopefully better, which would be going back to all the additional transparency measures as envisaged in the JCPOA. If this doesn't happen, well, then I will yet again, unlike the situation in the past, I will have to discuss this with the new government, because the previous government had a different take on this. They wanted to have a more tabulated sort of and extend the IOU for periods of time. In the end, that led us to a situation where we ended up in limbo. I think that did not help either Iran or the IAEA. So with Dr. Islami, we decided to take a practical approach. We are in agreement that this is what we're going to do now. We are doing it, and then we will be seeing how things evolve, hopefully for the better.
Hello, DG. Setsuko Inaki from Nippon Television. How are you? I have two questions. One is on DPRK, so I just want to first start with the Iran issue.
Yes, please. My pleasure.
Iran has started enriching up to 60%. Now, that is a completely different level from what we had before. And in countries like Japan as well, like any countries who has advanced enrichment program is under a very strong scrutiny under just normal circumstances, with or without JCPOA. So do you think that you might, or IAEA might want to sort of reframe the whole activities of the verifications in light of this new development? Because I think that the cameras, real-time assessment is part of the normal verification under the normal verification system, in my view. And Iran is not doing it at the moment because Iran is blocking you to have an access to all the data. Of course, that sort of is not just the 60% part, but it's sort of like where the rota is created. But all the, I think IAEA should have the whole view of the enrichment program in light of this new. So would that sort of be back of your mind? And would that be sort of considered to be discussed when you meet the new government? That's the question number one. And I would withhold because the second one regards to the DPRK. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's very interesting, but it's a bit too speculative. With all due respect, because what you're telling me is, and I won't repeat all that you said, but it's full of ifs. So at the moment we have a system which perhaps I can bring a zest of precision to what you said, in that what we do is not only what is a part of a normal comprehensive safeguards agreement. We have a number of activities that are part of what we have been discussing for the last half hour or so. So different activities that take place in agreement with them. So there is this separate layer that is there. Then that scenario we should see. My hope is that we will get back to a higher level of transparency, because I would agree with you that with these levels of and not only enrichment, with this level, with this breadth of activities which are legitimate, at the same time, they require a commensurate verification and inspection presence. So this will be something that we will see as the story unfolds, unfortunately. So I wouldn't like to speculate on what could be done in very precise terms, but I would be happy to continue the conversation with you when this happens.
The second question is on DPRK.
Yes.
We do appreciate your issuing the report every year. This year, I have, after having read it, I have a feeling that the DPRK's activities, apart from not testing, is really back before the Singapore agreement, meaning that they're doing the reprocessing, they're starting the firing up the nuclear, the reactor once again to get the spent fuel. So what is your assessment on this? That are they back before that level, or do you even say that they are actually escalating their activities?
Well, I would say that the reports are clear in indicating that we see many activities ongoing in different sites. So having as a point of reference the level of activities before the summit meeting between the then President of the United States and the leader, I don't think that is a metric that would help much because, as you know, we don't have an on-site presence. Our inspectors have been barred from the country and expelled back in 2009. We do have a pretty good impression of what is going on through different means, but to go to that level of granularity, it would not be helpful. What is clear is that this program is continuing, contrary to the resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, and is growing, and this is clear.
Thank you. I am Ahmad Samadi from Iran International TV.
Hello.
I have two questions.
Yes.
You told you will travel to Tehran very soon. Does any confirmed date, or it will be conditional?
Not yet.
And second question is, resolutions before the IAEA Board of Governors keep being put on hold in order to preserve the diplomacy to revive the nuclear deal. And in the process, Iran's outstanding safeguards issues remains unresolved.
Mm-hmm.
You told today in your opening speech. Are you concerned this is undermining the IAEA's missions and the NPT? Thank you.
Well, I said in my report that I'm concerned and that our activities are being undermined because of this situation. I would not extend that affirmation to the NPT, but I would certainly say that we need to redress this situation. And we have to tackle it as soon as possible. Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I have another question. In your opening remarks today to the Board of Governors, you said that the lack of process in clarifying the agency's questions concerning the correctness and completeness of Iran's safeguarding seriously affects the ability of the agency to provide assurance of the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program. Does that mean that at the moment you cannot provide assurances that Iran's nuclear program is peaceful?
Well, what that means is what is said in the report. That means that when there are questions and there is information that may indicate that there have been activities not reported and there has been material not reported, then the logical conclusion of these two simple affirmations is that there is a question mark around past declarations. And it is in this sense that we are saying that the completeness and the correctness of the declarations could be put into question. So this is why we believe that this is an additional reason why we must say that we are going to clarify this. Otherwise, we cannot give a complete assurance that everything is in order. There is indication, scientifically proven, that there has been material in places that were not declared. What do we do about that? It's a very simple question. And this is the question I want to repeat to the new government. And I hope I will be getting some answers.
Hello, DG. Marcus Eagle from the Nikkei.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask a short clarification regarding the agreement you reached yesterday in Tehran.
Yes.
Can this be seen de facto as an extension of the technical understanding you reached in February, which ran out earlier this summer, or is this technical understanding still in limbo as of now? Thank you.
No, it cannot be seen as an extension because the government decided that they didn't want to, and already also the previous government in its last days, that they didn't want to go through a formal extension of the previous one, but we have an operational sort of modus vivendi, if you want, whereby we continue to perform these activities, and we are even able to rectify situations where these activities are affected or interrupted in some way, as it was the case.
Yes, Rafael.
Thank you. Sorry. Hi. Two more questions, I'm afraid. First of all, you said last night that the agreement you've reached with the Iranians is aimed at allowing time for diplomacy. And at several points over the past year, you've talked about how, you know, as far as the JCPOA is concerned, you can't simply go back to square one because square one isn't there anymore, right? So this idea that there is this constantly evolving reality on the ground in Iran. And several countries on the board have also expressed concern about the issue of irreversible knowledge gain. So I'm simply wondering if, from your point of view, there is a limit to this time for diplomacy. Is there a point at which it's no longer realistic to actually reach an agreement to go back to the JCPOA in some way, shape, or form? And a completely different issue. In your JCPOA report, you mentioned the fact that Iran has completed the, I think, fourth step in the process of producing uranium metal, so the last step. But you also say that what they produced isn't suitable for the stated purpose, which is for use in the Tehran research reactor. So what happened there? Is that a bad batch, and is it usable for something else? So, you know, what happened there?
Yeah, on this one, which is the more technical, I would say we explained that it's been used to produce silicide for fuel plates for the TRR. There have been some technical glitches, as it's something that may happen, especially when you are getting into such a sophisticated area as working with uranium metal. So There have been some issues, but they have addressed them. And the understanding I have from my technical advisors is that this is proceeding. So this is moving. The first question, you know, I always like to answer every question, but I think this is not a question for me. You know, for how long can you know, I'm a diplomat, and I believe diplomacy is always possible, and it's the best way to address problems.
Can we take one more?
Oh, of course, yes, please, with pleasure.
I just had two clarifications, sorry. The first clarification is you mentioned that any violent event is not good, and I'm just clarifying, does that apply for just Karaj or for the other kinetic events, including the assassinations and the sabotages at Natanz that have occurred in Iran? I mean, are you condemning any kind of sabotage or violent event in Iran against its nuclear facilities categorically?
I think we haven't been discussing this, Jonathan, but of course, as a you know, head of an international organization, we always condemn violence. I mean, there is no question that we would endorse violence.
And
but
then
the point was about Karaj, and whether the fact that some of the cameras that we have installed there were damaged was affecting our work. And I said to the lady that, of course, it has affected her.
Right. And then exactly on this issue of cameras, I think there's a great misunderstanding about the kinds of monitoring that was cut off in February that affected the additional protocol and the extra JCPOA measures. So at the centrifuge workshops, the uranium mining facilities, heavy water, you do have cameras still installed and access to at places like Natanz and Fordo. Is that not correct?
We do.
Right. And so how often actually are you going into Fordo and Natanz and checking those cameras and getting the footage and bringing it back?
As often as is required.
Okay. So do you know how many cameras more or less you have access to right now in Iran? Is it like dozens?
We have access to many cameras, the amount that we need.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming to this press conference.
Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice afternoon. Thank you.